Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Is this too loud, too soft, just right? It's too loud? Okay, kann man das Mikrofon ein bisschen leiser stellen? So is this better? Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome to Vienna, even though it is cold outside. We are in the warm bus and we are going to have a nice morning. We have a nice tour scheduled for you. And I would like to introduce your team for this morning. The most important man, of course, is Sasha. And Sasha is going to bring us safely into the city and drive us back safely to the bus. Take us back safely to the city. I'm sorry, we're in the bus. My name is Martina. You can also call me Tina, like Martina Navratilova. You probably heard of her. We share the same first name, and I will be your guide this morning. And we are going to ride into the city, then walk a little ways. Then you're going to have some free time where I recommend that you do two things. Namely, number one, go inside St. Stephen's Cathedral, walk up to the gate so you get a first impression of the cathedral inside, and then number two, go and get yourself a good cup of coffee, Viennese coffee, and use the restrooms there in one of the coffee houses around St. Stephen's Cathedral. There's also the option of using the restrooms in the subway station of St. Stephen's foundation area that was built to protect Vienna from in case of floods, and that works very well. And the Danube Island is very popular, used by many Viennese. It's not very wide, of course, but it's very long stretching, and people like it for picnic or for all sorts of sports, and of course bike tours. People can come with their bike with public transportation and then ride up and down the Danube Island. So we are going to have our first landmark for this morning, for today. On the left-hand side, that is the Jubilee Church, or St. Francis of Assisi Church, or simply Mexico Church, because it lies on Mexico. The church lies on Mexico Square. The church was built for the celebration, the Jubilee of the reign of Emperor Francis Joseph, right before 1900, his 60th year of reign, or 50th year of reign, I'm sorry. But anyway, they didn't finish the church for a longer while, because the same year, 1898, his beloved wife Elizabeth Sisi, nicknamed Sisi, was assassinated in Geneva, stabbed with a file by an Italian anarchist. And there is a beautiful chapel inside that church. You won't believe it. It is the church itself is built in neo-Romanesque style. In other words, picking up an older style in history to transport a message, and the message is that the Habsburgs were, of course, ruling Austria for more than 600 years. Emperor Francis Joseph was a member of the Habsburg dynasty, and the Habsburgs started ruling in the medieval times, in the Middle Ages, and that's why this church is built in neo-Romanesque style. Anyway, back to that chapel dedicated to Sisi, his wife, that was killed that very year. It is beautiful. It has wonderful mosaics. It looks a little bit like Ravenna, if you have been to Italy before. But of course, that chapel is not, you can't just walk in, unfortunately, and look at the chapel. You have to go there on appointment. But it is a beautiful chapel. Maybe if you return to Vienna someday, you can visit that chapel. Anyway, it's quite a large church. Only St. Stephen's Cathedral and the votive church house more people. I've forgotten if it's 5,000 or 8,000 people that can stay in that church, but anyway, it's quite a number of people. So, I assume none of you are using public transportation. In case you should want to return to the ship, this would be your exit to the left. The blue cube with the white U are very popular in Vienna. Vienna is a city of a population of 1.9 million people roughly, and has 23 districts. And your ship, respectively the Danube, ends off the second district. If you look on the street signs here, to the right or to the left, you will see a little 2, number 2 in front of the street name, and that indicates the district you're in, which is in this case the second district. And this is a very busy road with a lot of office buildings, but also some private housing, private homes. And we're going to see another landmark of Vienna, and that is the giant Ferris wheel coming up on the left-hand side. I'm sure you all have heard of the giant Ferris wheel. It was built also at the beginning, or right before the 1900s, and marks the entrance to the amusement park section of the so-called Prater. Prater is a word that comes from the Latin pratum, which means meadow or green area. And the Prater used to be the former hunting ground of the Habsburgs in Baroque times, or in medieval times, more or less Baroque times, and was open to the public more than 200 years ago, and the Viennese just loved it. And the Prater actually is, as I mentioned, a green area, twice the size of Central Park or even more, with woody area, with meadows for picnic, where you can do all sorts of sports in there. But there's an amusement park section, and that is very popular, with roller coasters, with merry-go-rounds, with all sorts of attractions. And the Viennese like to come to take a ride on the giant Ferris wheel on special occasions, such as after weddings or confirmation. So this is the so-called Prater Stern, the Prater Star, where a lot of roads come together. And this is a very busy area. They're constructing and building, and also the railways and train passes by here, and of course the streetcar and the buses and the subways. So this is a very busy area here in Vienna. And you have a monument on the left-hand side for Admiral Tegethoff. He was an Austrian admiral, successful. His greatest success was a battle against the Italians at Lissa in 1866, if I'm not mistaken, anyway, second half of the 19th century. And you will ask now, why is there an admiral in a land like Austria? Well, you have to take into consideration that the Austro-Hungarian monarchy was much bigger, covered much more territory than Austria does nowadays. It was great parts of Hungary, some parts of course, of Poland, of Germany, or Czechoslovakia, Bohemia, and Moravia, and also stretched up to the Ukraine, of present-day Ukraine. So it covered quite some territory once upon a time, and therefore there was also, it stretched to Italy and to Croatia, and there were harbors, of course, in Italy, like for instance Trieste. The largest harbor in Italy was Trieste, and there was quite Austria was quite a sea power at the time. So there was an admiral and there was a navy, and therefore we had that battle at Lissa against the Italians, and the Italians were defeated. repeated once at least. So we are going to ride from the second district now across the Danube Canal. Now, to confuse you a little bit more, we have not only the main arm of the Danube, but we have the Danube Canal, which used to be the main arm flowing by the city of Vienna. The city of Vienna once used to be the first district, surrounded by city walls, and those city walls were dismantled in the 19th century, mid of the 19th century, and flowing by the first district or the city center was this arm of the Danube, which was regulated then in the 19th century, and now is the Danube Canal. It is very popular for young people to come after work hours. There are bars further on down, but there's also the option, of course, of jogging, of doing sports along the Danube Canal. And it is very popular for young artists to do that spraying. And we have a lot of graffiti along the Danube Canal. And that is, of course, quite some attraction for other people interested in street art. That's something you find here along the Danube Canal. We do not like for young people or for young artists to spray our palaces in downtown Vienna. As a matter of fact, when you're caught, you're sentenced with several months of jail if you spray one of the palaces in downtown Vienna. But of course, along the Danube Canal, it's allowed. The city fathers invite people to express themselves artistically. So this is, we're riding through the third district now, Radetzky Straße. Field Marshal Radetzky was, you may know the Radetzky March if you know the New Year's concerts from broadcasted from Vienna, from the Golden Hall of the Musikverein. The Society of Friends of Music have a wonderful concert venue, and every 1st of January there's a big concert coming from there, and there is the famous Radetzky March, which is being performed, and this road is named after Field Marshal Radetzky, who was one of the leading generals in the Austrian army, also under Emperor Francis Joseph. So this is a very busy area in the 3rd district, the Hintere Zollambtstraße. We have a sort of one of the buildings of the Ministry of Finance. So we don't like these buildings, of course, because they mean that we have to pay our taxes, and they always find something for us to make money, yes, for us to lose money if you want. But anyway, these buildings are office buildings, and we're going to take a left turn and then so we are heading for the Ring Boulevard now, and I mentioned earlier that the Ring Boulevard was I didn't mention earlier. I mentioned earlier that the city walls were dismantled under Emperor Francis Joseph in the second half of the 19th century. And instead of those city walls and the so-called glacis, the area between the city walls and the suburbs of Vienna, where troops could parade and exercise, instead of that area, a broad boulevard was constructed. And that is what is nowadays our Ring Boulevard. And we're heading for that Ring Boulevard, and it is a very broad road with side streets and wonderful trees, linden trees, and of course sycamore trees. And each it's divided in several stretches. It goes like a circle around the city, more or less, almost a complete circle around the city center, and each section bears a different name. And we are going to pass by now the University of Applied Arts. Those are it's now University of Applied Arts. Here on the left-hand side. And here's the Ring Boulevard where we're heading for. On the right-hand side you have the former Ministry of War, and you have a monument for Field Marshal Verdetsky, whom we just talked about, the gentleman who was one of the leading generals in Austria in the second half of the 19th century. And one of the students here in the museum, in the university, of course it was not called university at the time, it was called School for Arts and Crafts, was a certain Gustav Klimt, the painter who painted the famous Kiss, which is on display in the Belvedere Museum in Vienna. And this is the Museum of Applied Arts, a very fine museum. They have a nice exhibition now on Joseph Hoffmann. Joseph Hoffmann was one of the leading artists of the Art Nouveau movement, that modern style in the 19th century that developed around 1900, a little before 1900. The English arts and crafts movement was a great input, and then came our Jugendstil, our Art Nouveau style, and Gustav Klimt, of course, was one of the most famous members of that movement. On the left-hand side, you have the city park. The city park came to being when the Ring Boulevard was constructed in the second half of the 19th century. It is a wonderful park with little ponds, with ducklings, with monuments for famous artists and composers, and the children's playground. The river Vienna, which ends in the Danube Canal, divides that park into two sections. And if you take a look to the left here, you will see the monument for Johann Strauss' son, the famous composer of the Blue Danube Waltz. You see the gilded figure underneath the marble arch. That is Johann Strauss' son, who composed the Blue Danube Waltz. And he got his monument here in the city park. And this is the Hübner's Kursalon, where they had also performances, also under Johann Strauss' son. And they still keep up that tradition and perform Strauss waltzes and also music by Wolfgang Amadeus. This section of the Ring Boulevard is named after Franz Schubert, another famous composer who was born in Vienna, died in Vienna, and left us with wonderful symphonies, string quartets, masses, and most of all with his rich and varied number of lieder, of songs that he composed. So what we're going to do now is we're going to leave the Ring Boulevard just a short while, so you can see Schwarzenberg Square, named for Prince Schwarzenberg, who is riding a horse here in the center of the square. And you see a wonderful hotel here on the right-hand side. If we turn left, Hotel Imperial. The white building used to be a palace on the Ring Boulevard. It used to belong to a German prince who sold it, and it was transformed into a hotel. This is where, for instance, Charlie Chaplin stayed, or Michael Jackson, or of course all our state guests stay there, like for instance the Queen of England. And this is Schwarzenberg, with nice palaces. And there's the House of Industry on the left-hand side, and lying in front of us, and on the right-hand side the House of Merchants. And there's a nice fountain at the end of Schwarzenberg Square. And we are going to turn right here, so you can see, you will be seeing on the left-hand side maybe the nicest Baroque church in Vienna, which is Charles Church, built by Johann Bernhard Fischer von Erlach, one of the leading architects of the Baroque era. It was built after a plague epidemic hit Vienna at the beginning of the 18th century. And on the right-hand side, look at that beautiful Baroque church with those two columns and the beautiful dome. And on the right-hand side, you have the Society of Friends of Music building with the Golden Hall inside where the New Year's concert takes place, where you hear the Radetzky March and the Blue Danube Waltz. And on the left-hand side behind the trees, you have in the distance the old Technical University building. Then up front here, you have two pavilions designed by Otto Wagner, one of the leading architects of the Art Nouveau movement in Vienna around 1900. And in the far distance, you can see at approximately 11 o'clock a white cubic building with a gilded dome made of laurel leaves, and that is a secession building. And the secession was a movement where all the Art Nouveau artists said, we want a new style, we want new ideas in painting, in architecture, in sculpture, and we want the total work of art, also considering modern life, should all be designed, should all be filled with this new style. And they had their exhibition space there. And for a famous exhibition of Ludwig van Beethoven, Gustav Klimt painted the frieze, the so-called Beethoven frieze, which is in the Secession building nowadays and can be seen there. So we're heading back for the Ring Boulevard, and for those of you sitting up front, but I think even in the back you can see the tip of the southern spire of St. Stephen's Cathedral in the far distance, so we're very close to the city center. As I said, the Ring Boulevard circles around the city center, and you have the State Opera, one of the first public buildings built on the Ring Boulevard here, coming up on the, as we turn left, on the right-hand side or right in front of us right now as we stand here at the stoplight. And the State Opera was built in the 1860s. It's built in neo-Renaissance style because in the Renaissance period in Italy, the form of opera developed. It is an opera house where under normal conditions there are changing performances every night from September to the end of June. Now with COVID, of course, we saw some very sad days where there was nothing going on, but the State Opera has picked up again, and we have opera and ballet performances every night. The Opera House was opened with a performance by Don Giovanni by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and was severely destroyed at the end of World War II, mistaken for a railway station. At least that's what the Allied forces said. Anyway, it was, thank goodness, not torn down, as some of the people suggested, but was reconstructed after old plans, and now stands tall again, stands here on the Ring Boulevard, and makes people very happy, of course, with all the lovely performances going on inside. Under normal conditions, we also have a highlight every season, that is the Opera Ball, right before the time of Lent. But of course, that Opera Ball didn't take place the last years because of COVID restrictions. So all of these buildings, left and right, used to be palaces belonging to the rich members of the bourgeoisie. One building belonged to one family. On the left-hand side, you have the Academy of Fine Arts, the Fine Arts Academy, and of course, University of Fine Arts. And on the right-hand side, you already have the park that belongs to the Imperial Palace. We're going to walk not through that park, but through another section, and you have the tail end of the Imperial Palace to the right, with the new wing of the Imperial Palace, and you have two wonderful museums coming inside, the Fine Arts Museum and the Natural History Museum. And all of these buildings, built in the 19th century in neo-Renaissance or neo-Baroque style, were part of a project called Emperor's Forum where these museums, together with the new wing of the Imperial Palace on the right-hand side, was part of a big project. Not everything was actually built in it at the end of the 19th century, but it was one of the big projects of Emperor Francis Joseph, and there were all sorts of ideas to make this one of the largest spaces. I will tell you more about the Imperial Palace as we start our walking tour. You already have a view onto these two museums on the left-hand side and the Imperial Palace on the right-hand side. We're going to get off here, but we are going to ride around the Ring Boulevard just a little further for you to see our Parliament. Also an interesting building is the Palais Epstein on the left-hand side that used to belong to a rich Jewish banker and his family. He had constructed a very lovely palace also inside. And then comes our Parliament on the left-hand side, which is just under construction right now. But you see it's built in Greek Revival style Greek Revival style to transport the message that democracy was formed in Greece in antiquity, and you have the central part built like a temple, like a Greek temple, with side wings and a lot of columns and statues. And in the middle is a huge statue of Pallas Athene, the goddess of wisdom, the protectress of Athens, and we also hope that she protects our democracy as well. So right now this building is under construction, the Parliament is under construction. That's why we have our meetings. The Parliament has the meetings in the Imperial Palace. I'm going to show you where. And coming up on the right-hand side is the part that belongs to the Town Hall. This building on the right-hand side with a high spire is not a church, but it's the Town Hall in Neo-Gothic style, because the end of the medieval times was the time when the bourgeoisie got more influential, the people, the citizens, the burghers got more influential, and that was the style at the time. So you have the town hall in Neo-Gothic style, which is a very impressive building with a number of rooms, and you can really get lost in the building because there are so many stairs and staircases, and that's where our mayor has his office, and that's where, of course, the city council meets, and a very important building for Vienna. So we're going to turn left here, and you can see that they have planted new little trees around the Parliament. This is something new. The rear side of the building with the columns and the large windows. Coming up on the right-hand side is another spectacular historic building of the 19th century, and that is the Palace of Justice. And the Palace of Justice, of course, houses our Supreme Court and any other subdivision. On the right-hand side with the two huge lions marking the entrance. And lying in front of us is the Natural History Museum. That's where we're going to get off. And I would like to remind you that there is a restaurant on the bus for really desperate, for if you're very desperate to use the lavatory. If you have another 45 minutes or so, you can wait another 45 minutes. We are going to reach St. Stephen's Cathedral in about 3/4 of an hour, and then then you can use the restroom in either the subway station or one of the coffee houses around St. Stephen's Cathedral. So please don't forget your vaccination cards, passes, and otherwise it won't let you in the coffee houses. And don't forget your devices. Either we will need them now on our walking tour into downtown Vienna.
The more I pull the mask down, then when I put it back up, I fog every time I pull it down.
A bill that now the public that also a female succession should be possible in Austria, but as I said, the neighbors didn't believe in that female succession. And she was very unusual. She's surrounded by her advisors and by generals of her time. It's a very nice monument here in the center between the two museums. Now the Natural History Museum behind you houses a nice collection of all sorts of meteorites, of gems, of minerals, of skeletons of dinosaurs. It also has a little famous statue, the Venus of Willendorf. I don't know if you ever heard of her. She is in that museum. And then there are also, of course, a lot of information on the beginning of the Earth and all sorts of questions concerning natural history. All the galleries with all the wonderful art that the Habsburgs collected throughout the century.
Das kann ich bloß verbieten, auch wenn sich der wieder neu steigert. Sorry.
Vicky.
If you want me to take the mask down,
okay.
I will.
I can't have you doing it every 5 seconds.
Figures or generals in Austria, and he served 3 Austrian emperors in the 17th, respectively 18th century. And he constructed or had constructed or had built or commissioned the Belvedere Palace, which you all know maybe from pictures where we have the famous Klimt kiss, for instance, in the galleries. And he also commissioned a number of other palaces. He owned several castles out in the countryside for hunting. He loved hunting, apart from his activities as a general. And he also had a wonderful art gallery and a wonderful collection of books. And he was quite a talented man. He was born in Paris, and he told Louis XIV that he wanted to be a soldier, and he laughed at him. He left Austria and he served the Austrian Habsburg against the French people, his own people, in several wars. So he was a very, very talented man. So in this new wing is several museums. There's a collection of papyri. There's also the National Library has a section in there. There's a she loved children's policy. Outskirts of Vienna, of course, not the part of Vienna.
Morning.
In wintertime, this is where she lived with her family, and she had her office rooms over there. That's the morning house now. My people, 29
Da könnte man natürlich auch kein Foto hin. Das muss man hier nicht beigehen.
This is the oldest picture in the world. Inside there is a very also the Vienna Austria celebration. So this is all this time. And this is the area for tournaments, for spring rides, for parades, for all sorts of things. And then this building is built. And then the grandfather of Maria Theresa connected these two buildings, and the father of Maria Theresa completed this square by building the Reichs-Chancellery wing, lying in front of you. In the Reichs-Chancellery wing, you can see two flags waving there. Sisi Museum. There's a museum for the wife of Emperor Francis Joseph, Elizabeth, who got assassinated in Geneva. There is also the imperial rooms where she and her husband had their living quarters in wintertime. and also her room, so it's quite a selection. And you have also the silver collection, where the silver of the Habsburgs was kept, or where it's on display now at least. And in the center of this square you have Francis II the First. He was the grandson of Maria Theresa. And why on earth was he called Francis II the First? He was Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, and was Francis II of the Holy Roman Empire. Now the Holy Roman Empire was a bringing together of Central European countries under one crown. To make it very simple, Charles the Great, Charlemagne, around 800, was the first crowned Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. And he was Francis II and the last Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, because when Napoleon was eager to grab that crown, he did something very intelligent. He first proclaimed the Empire of Austria, making the Archduchy more important and making it an empire, and became Francis I of the Empire of Austria, and then ended the Holy Roman Empire, which was the end meant he was no longer Francis II, he was now Francis I of the new Empire of Austria. So that's why it's called Francis II the First. He's surrounded by allegories, virtues like justice, or faith, figures on the front, and also statues in the back.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is the crown pure gold?
That crown is gilded, and that is a copy of the crown in the treasury of the Holy Roman Empire.
Pure gold?
That is not pure gold. It is gilded. It is gilded, yeah. It would be too precious to be pure gold here on the outside of a building. But the original crown is lovely. It's a lovely crown. It's a gold crown with gems and pure pearls. And pearls. It's a very lovely crown, which you find there in the tray.
Look down the town. The walking street.
And you can get
Wow.
Do you ever think about all these faceless things up there with helmets?
Morning. What's up?
Do you ever say
The horses, when they're born dark. They are proud or brave. They turn white or and some remain dark and their roots are strong. But most of them turn white. They have their morning training in their morning hours. That's why you Michael Square, my people 29A. Let's move back to Michael Square. So what you see in the center, not on the side, these first 19th century, respectively Baroque times. But in the center of the square, you see excavations that go back to Roman times. And indeed, this used to be a Roman road right here, going in this direction. And there was a Roman road leading to the Vindobona military camp. So Vienna grew or developed out of this Roman military camp, which was named Vindobona and which lay in that direction. And these were the canavi, the so-called suburbs of the Romans, where they had the opportunity to meet with their workplace or with young ladies. So the soldiers were not allowed to bring in with their wives or their girlfriends into the military camp. So this was one of many canavi, one of many suburbs of that military camp. And there was an encaustic heating also in this building from the 2nd to the 4th century. And it goes down far. You can see over there, this doesn't look too far, but it goes far below ground. And you see the layers of history here on this square. Also interesting is this building right over there that belongs to a bank. That was the first modern building built in Vienna by Adolf Loos. It caused a huge scandal because people thought it was too simple and bare. It didn't have any windows, no ornamentation. Adolf Loos studied in the United States for a while. He lived there, and he was sort of our Frank Lloyd Wright, if you will. So he was one of the first modern architects in Vienna. So we shall move on. Work out with the park. Yeah, the people from inside. So Forma is the name of this place.
Yeah, your politicians are very occupied. The prison.
A nice a nice bookstore for everything from But in Vienna, there are two addresses in downtown Vienna where people like to go for chocolate cake, either Saka, the Hotel Saka, or Demos. And there was actually also an argument between the original cake because they both called it Saka cake. But one of the descendants of the Saka family was in the place. Anyway, this inside is very lovely, and they serve you excellent coffee and a very good cake and pastries and all the reasons to live in the valley. The Roman military camp, and was filled with dirt or water or whatever, and was then covered with dirt and made plain. And the bottom there, with the money that came from tax Richard Lionel, and from that freedom, Baden made this area plain and that enabled the city to grow. Also partly built the city walls of Vienna with that money. This area, then in Baroque times, of course, was an area for procession and market area where people used to buy but it was also an area for parades, and there's a beautiful sunset. Oh,
wow. Standing, let me get this. All right, maybe not.
And it's about 350.
Jeez.
Look at that.
Can't hear you.
I didn't see it. My hands are cool too.
High quality ones.
Well, I thought these were pretty decent. And it's got the little thing to work your phone. I don't know. My camera's off. Well, this part's off, so I can't see, but the picture's coming out. Let me try to take a picture through the thing. Go over here.
Yeah, when Caitlin and I came over here.
I just want to get a picture of that, but I'll do it from back here. I don't know why I still have the earpiece.
Yeah, I just took mine out.
Alright, let's go have a coffee.
Yeah.
Sorry. How do you say thank you?
Danke.
Donka. I said donka.
Same difference.
So,
You can see. Okay. Right there. You can say Danke schön, which is thank you very much. Or you can just say Danke. Here, let me get a picture.
11:23.
Good. Nice stuff.
What?
Do we have another minute to go look?
Yes, of course. But be here at 11, the latest.
We're just going to go to the
Yeah.
souvenir shop
Souvenir
there.
shop, yeah.
Yeah.
There's another one right down this way.
Okay.
This one is bigger, that one is smaller.
That one's bigger?
More temptation.
Okay.
11:33.
Hello.
Are you talking about? It's only bones now.
That's why he has 3 stones in one hand. And then on the left hand side is another paper saying Laurentius, who's not so popular anymore, but he was very popular in the medieval times. And he got, they tied him to a grid and put fire underneath, and it was really a cruel martyrdom of his. But what I really want to show you, there's a lot to discover apart from the beautiful Romanesque central entrance. There are 2 symbols for the male and the female organs. A phallic symbol and a symbol for the female organs on this cathedral. Can you discover them?
Well, they wouldn't really know where to look.
You wouldn't know where to look because there's a lot going on the facade. Yes. I will help you. Below the clock, on the left-hand side, are 2 semi-columns. And on those semi-columns is a phallic symbol. Can you see that?
Yes.
And then you have on the other side 2 semi-columns with the female organs.
Oh, yes.
So why on earth are there these pagan symbols on the Gothic cathedral? To be honest, I'm not really quite sure myself. I've read many explanations. None of them were really satisfying. But it has to do maybe with the fact that a lot of symbols, like the gargoyles, for instance, on the facade, are supposed to ward off the evil spirits. And maybe the primeval sins or whatever. So you have these pagan symbols here on the facade, and everybody agrees that they're there, but the explanations are not really satisfying. Stephen's Cathedral. The prime number 37 is the basic figure. And 1 times 3 times 37, 333, 111, sorry. 111 feet is the width of the cathedral. The feet was the measurement at the time when it was built. 3 times 3 times 37, 333 feet is the length of the cathedral, and 4 times 3 times 37, 400 4 is the height of the southern spiral. So there is a mathematical path. Okay, let's get going then. Is everyone okay elsewise, missing a partner or so? No. I normally don't count, but I think we're basically, that's about the number of people that came along with me. Okay, so we are basically moving straight on down, but there's one very tricky crossing, and I don't want any one of you to get hit by a streetcar.
Either. What I had in Vienna.
I'm going to take off my glasses again because I see absolutely nothing.